All right, this is another episode of the Critical Introverts podcast. I'm your host, Senor Filth. I'm interviewing today Jak Bravo, comic book illustrator, Christian comic book illustrator. If you want to just introduce yourself, everybody know who
Hey,
you
what's
are.
up? Yeah, what's up to everybody? I appreciate you guys inviting me on the show. I really appreciate it. And I'll say before anything that I'll come back anytime you guys want me to. My
Cool.
name is Jak Bravo. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. I'm the creator of the comic book Wags the Warrior of Truth, which is a Christian comic book for young men.
Hmm.
I don't know if you guys want any more than that. I also work in law enforcement. I'm a police officer.
Nice.
So
Yeah, I'm surprised to find that out. I just found out about that just before we started recording.
yeah. It's a big part of my comic book and what drove me to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing all the nonsense going on and then coming back. I don't know if you know, but the city I worked in had two riots, going on. One in 2015
Mm-hmm.
and one just at the last, during the Black Lives Matter riots.
Right.
And I was working so many hours and doing all that stuff. I would come home and the only thing that would really help me de-stress myself is to draw. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided, instead of just drawing random things, I was gonna create a comic book that would appeal to young Christian men,
Mm.
and that would have some of the principles. Even that if you aren't a Christian, some of the principles would still appeal to young men in general because
Yeah.
these are the same principles that the comic book industry is taking out. So
Yeah.
I definitely want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a weird, I don't know, like a stigma when people hear, Christian
Yeah.
something, because usually the quality of it's usually kind of crappy
Yep.
and cheesy, but it seems like people have forgotten that there is something about absorbing just the general values that they sell, but even for
Definitely.
storytelling purposes,
Yeah. Well, you know what I find out is so insane nowadays when you look at entertainment
mm-hmm.
is they're taking away the whole reason why there's a good guy and a bad guy by
Yeah.
making things. They're making things morally ambiguous now. Everything's
Yeah.
morally relative. So it's like you got a good guy and now you got, gay Superman fighting global warming.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
nobody wants to watch that. People want to watch good guys fight bad guys. Now that
yeah.
doesn't mean your bad guys have to be uninteresting, but
Mm-hmm.
tell a good story. That's all people want to see. They don't care necessarily that you're a Christian or whether you're atheist or anything like that. They want to
Mm-hmm.
see a good story where good guys fight the bad guys.
Yeah, it seems like people have forgotten just the importance of making something entertaining and fun, and
Mm-hmm.
now so much media shows have this preachiness to it that
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
getting just it's almost getting to a point where it's kind of boring now. I just can't
Yeah.
watch shit.
Yep. You already know where they're going and who
Yeah.
they make it so obvious.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to step away from that myself because it's like just because I'm dealing with Christian principles doesn't mean you got to display somebody in such a cartoon fashion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not an atheist, but when I have the atheist character in my comic book, I'm not going to make him appear just because I don't agree with it
Mm-hmm.
as a complete idiot.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be very intelligent, as most atheists that I run into are.
Mm-hmm.
If I have somebody who, I disagree with their principles, Hollywood has no idea how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
They'll put a Christian in a comic book, or they'll put somebody right wing in the comic book, a conservative in the comic book, somebody who
Yeah.
believes in gun rights in the comic book, and they'll just make them a complete idiot, bozo, redneck guy.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
like, that's not how real world works.
Yeah,
Nobody is that idiotic,
yeah, I think that's sort of why the left has gone so insane, because they sort of
Definitely.
um they've kind of gotten lazy in why they
Mm-hmm.
should engage with the look for good arguments and good
Yep.
positions on things, because it kind of keeps you on check and keeps you
Yep.
fresh.
You know
And
what's crazy? That's
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. And now the average person on the left, just their arguments are just terrible. Even though their
Absolutely.
intentions are good, They just
You're 100% right, man.
yeah.
They dehumanize anybody they disagree with, so they don't have to argue.
Yeah.
You know, they'll call me a traitor to my own race, so that therefore we don't have to talk to him. He's a this, he's a that. I don't know what words you want to use, but they use them all. And it's like, if you dehumanize somebody and make it so that we don't associate with him, he's so beneath us, we don't have to talk about his ideas, then that's why they don't feel like they have to debate or do anything. They just present you with this nonsense propaganda, and people just believe it, and they think that's how things are supposed to be, because the market is flooded with it.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
It's a shame too, because like, I mean, you could tell, like, I enjoy these kind of exchanges. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I, follow a lot of stuff. Like, I wouldn't say I'm like conservative or, whatever, but I'm not like a leftist. But like, I think people are missing out in how like enjoyable this can be. Just, talking to people that have different views. You sort of grow depth. Definitely. Within yourself by doing that.
The most I've learned is by talking to people I disagree with. And because you have to actually defend your ideas. You can't just sit there and say, I believe this because my dad and the people around me agree with that. That's why a lot of the people who put themselves in those bubbles, where they're in these safe spaces or whatever you want to call it, when they put themselves in these places, they don't necessarily, you find out they've never had to defend their position.
Yeah.
And you talk to them, and it's so like a shallow, easy to defeat idea. And it's like most of my friends who subscribe to a lot of these goofy ideas, it's like they've never had them challenged. And then when they talk to me, they're like, "Oh man, I never considered that."
Yeah,
like, man, you never considered that at all.
Yeah, it's weird when you like ask just a basic question, and it kind of shatters like their position in it. It's odd. Like just like one variable type of question, and they just like have no. They either get flustered or angry, or they just look at you weird. It's really odd, man.
I often do that at work, where people will come up to, like I told you the story before we started about me getting cussed out by like the angry feminist types at work simply for wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
And people will come up and just say the evilest things. And then if you ask them a question, you say, okay, I'm a black man. I grew up in the inner city. How are you calling me racist?
Yeah.
Just because I'm wearing a police uniform or anything like that, how am I? And they can't explain it.
Yeah.
They just, it's like they've been fed this nonsense and they just have to believe it.
Yeah. I'm under the impression that I think people don't even know what racist means now.
Nope.
They throw it, they're really quick, like they're trigger happy to throw that word when something just like relates to a different race somehow, but doesn't praise it. It's odd. And
it's nonsense, man. People use that word and it's to our detriment, because half of the time with the black community, our main problem is we use too many excuses as to why we are not doing what we know we should do.
Yeah.
And white people can't say that anymore because that's racist. And then if you say it and you're black, you're a traitor. So if I tell people an absolutely non-racist message of, I believe you can succeed if you work hard enough.
Yeah.
If I tell you that message as a black man, somehow people will screw that up to say, "Oh man, he's racist. He doesn't believe white supremacy is this and that."
Yeah.
Actually, okay, whether white supremacy exists or not, I'm strong enough to defeat it. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I don't know what it is. It feels like people have like a lot at stake with like victimhood, and
definitely that's kind of foreshadowing what you want to talk about later.
Yeah. But like when I was in college, like whenever people hear me talk, like complain about like feminists and stuff, like they always throw like, "Oh, well, that's just the extremes or whatever. You don't know what you're talking about." But like I dealt with people like that, like in the art school environment, like when they're not in activist mode, and they're usually like just don't know, like they're not. I can't think of a better way to say it, but like they're just not very nice people. Like they're. Yeah, I mean, like they have like a snarky snobbiness to them that.
It's part of what I think liberalism does to people, though. Because if you walk around, right, and you think every white person is taking advantage of their white privilege, and every white person is guilty of stealing land from you, and everybody who believes in the Bible is homophobic, and everybody who believes in guns rights is a killer, and if you believe everyone who disagrees with you is a horrible person, how can you ever have a happy life? Because you know
exactly.
that the guy behind the counter you ordered food from probably don't agree with you, so therefore he's a horrible person. You know, and everybody you come in contact with, 50% of the country is horrible people in your eyes. You know, I don't agree with that. When I have people on all sides of the spectrum. You know, I lived in Atlanta in a very liberal spot, and I was in the arts, so I had plenty of friends with different points of view, and I never looked at them as, oh, you're a horrible person because of what you believe. Some of them might be misguided, but I never looked at them as less than human.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of noticing with like how conservatives sort of view people on the left versus people on the left viewing conservatives. Like conservatives usually just, you know, look at the average leftist as someone who just kind of might be a little confused or misguided or they're just a little bit wrong on facts. But the other side, there's like this weird, you're just against me kind of shit, and I don't understand like why the identity of like I'm so in open-minded, like it's all kind of bullshit. Like there a lot of them are
nonsense, man. It's nonsense because people that say they're the most tolerant are the less tolerant of everyone else. And the thing is, tolerance. He's here.
All right,
hey, what's up, guys? I made it. I'm on my iPad. My whole computer just basically, I don't know what happened to it. It crashed and just it's taken 10 years to get back on here. Man. Sorry, I didn't mean
it's okay, man.
No, you good. You good.
We're just
I was just saying that people on the left are or necessarily people that claim that they're about tolerance, not necessarily people on the left, but people who claim that they're all about tolerance are usually the less tolerant people. And it just works out like that because in order to tolerate somebody, you have to understand what love and selflessness is. You can't tolerate somebody and do some of the things that or stand for a lot of the things that they stand for. Silencing people, not having freedom of speech. How do you tolerate somebody and you don't want them to speak?
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I never understood like the people that have any sort of sense of like, oh, I'm so open-minded, but yet they're advocating for any kind of censorship or like any kind of punishment for people expressing some kind of view. It seems very like backwards thinking to me. Like I generally don't understand like how that is.
It's a lie, man. It's a lie because a lot of times people will. It's actually, if you look in and study propaganda, what they've done all throughout history is the people who are in charge of propaganda will take something that sounds positive and will manipulate it even though it's negative. So instead of being, and I don't know who's all pro-life and all this stuff, right? But instead of being, a pro-abortion, it's actually pro-choice.
Yeah.
And so what they'll do is they use the words to make it something that it's not, so that it appears positive even when it's negative. And so when you have somebody saying, I'm tolerant, really what they mean to say is there is acceptable language that I and the people behind me believe that should be allowed. And you are tolerant if you agree with this. If you don't agree with that, then we're going to call you all types of names. And that's actually the opposite of what tolerant is. So,
it's something, man.
Yeah, it's double speak.
Yeah, it is some like 1984 type of shit. It makes me wonder like how many people have actually read that book and
not enough.
It feels like
definitely not enough.
I remember it being like mandatory reading when I was in high school, I think. And what the fuck happened? Like it shouldn't be. Reality's fucked up when it reminds you of a dystopian future book that's, worldwide known. It's
Definitely, man.
odd. All right, so I guess let's go back into like, your comic if you want to explain, like,
Yeah.
you were talking about that it's a Christian based comic for young men, right?
Yes.
Um,
So
yeah, you want to go into it?
yeah, so it's called Wags the Warrior of Truth. It's written and illustrated by me.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Indiegogo campaign, and it's the same wording as Wags the Warrior of Truth comic.
Mm-hmm.
If you just look on Indiegogo, you'll find it. Also, we're on Facebook, Instagram. And what you'll see is that I'm not trying to tell a preachy story, and I'm also not trying to tell a nursery, story for small children.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually something for young men and even the college age group. I wanted to appeal to that group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what that means is that it's a Christian story that's unlike any other that I've seen, because it's going to have violence. It's going to deal with a lot of crazy social issues. It's going to have characters dying. It's going to have, people talking about things that I haven't seen any Christian media talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do that in a realistic way where people don't feel cheated.
Right.
Where like I said before, if you have somebody, just because I'm a Christian, that doesn't mean every atheist character in the comic book is going to be dumb.
Yeah.
I think that's stupid. That shows a bad writer or somebody who's trying to give you propaganda. The goal of my story and the Wags the Warrior of Truth is to tell a good story from a Christian perspective. Much like if you see Lord of the Rings or you like Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
that was from a Christian perspective, but it wasn't preaching. And I want to do the same thing. If you look at a lot of C.S. Lewis writings, his was more on the like Christian moral and parable type thing.
Uh-huh.
But I'll tell you this: my goal is to tell a good story that even people who don't necessarily subscribe to the beliefs can like it because the characters are interesting and they see where the bad guys and the good guys are coming from. There are bad guys and good guys, and they're obvious, yes, but I want the story to show that even a person that I disagree with could have their motives and their reasons for doing things that you should be able to understand.
Yeah.
And then, so the comic book is all about the spiritual world. The Christian theology talks about how the battle in the Christian life is a struggle, and it's a struggle compared to fighting. And Ephesians chapter 5, you read, it talks about the armor of God, how you have the sword, the shield of faith, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth. You have all these different things. The characters in this comic book, when they enter into the spiritual world, they have to use these things to defeat bad guys, right? They have to use these things to defeat people. But the thing is, it's comparing it to it's the spiritual world affects the physical world and vice versa. So when they get into a discussion or a debate in the real world, the physical world, what my comic book wants to do is to show what that battle looks like in the spiritual world.
Do you mean like on a subconscious, like on a subconscious level, like a personal struggle?
And no. Yes and no, because so there's in the spiritual world, the way the Bible compares it is the spiritual world is actually real. Okay, that's how the Bible describes it. It says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against evil powers, principalities, pretty much demons and angels. The Bible talks about these things, right? So in the comic book, the spiritual world is just as real as the physical world. The only difference is when you fight in the spiritual world, the effects are not the same. Killing somebody in the spiritual world may mean that in the physical world, they might be paralyzed, or they might get depressed about what they did, or they might become suicidal, or they might really die. It has different ramifications because the spiritual world and the physical world are not exactly the same, but they do affect each other. And that's how the Bible describes it in the real world as well. So, any questions you guys got?
That's cool,
The
man.
comic book explains it probably better than I do.
That's really interesting. What's the name of the comic again?
It's called Wags, the Warrior of Truth. WAGS, and then and Warrior, as in fighter, of Truth. Wags, the Warrior of Truth comic.
Is it how far is it to being completed?
Well, the first issue is 46 pages, and that's on my Indiegogo. And what I'm trying to do is fund the printing, because printing is expensive, and all the posters and art books and stuff like that.
Cool.
So I'm trying to fund that for the next one. So the first book, the physical copy, is actually finished.
Okay.
I can, I should have. If I prepared more, I would hold it up and show it to you. But I don't have it with my hands right now. It's actually finished. You can go on the website and actually see it. Like, you can go on Indiegogo, order one right now, and it will be mailed to you.
Okay. That's
and it's 46 pages, and it also has about 4 or 5 pages of just straight artwork, concept art, stuff like that. You can buy it digitally if you don't want the physical copy, all that. Then the next one I'm working on right now, but I'm going to be showing my progress of how I do the work. And, when I get 4 pages done, I'll show everybody who's involved how that looks,
Yeah, cool.
So,
I mean,
I'm sorry because I missed a little bit before I got kicked off. Is that all your artwork on your walls?
No, this is not my artwork. This is one of my favorite people's artwork. This is he's an artist I look up to called Kim Jong-ji.
Oh, is he the guy that can like pretty much ink?
Yeah,
that guy's a monster. Yeah.
He's amazing.
I'm sure I've seen his artwork, but
the guy is.
Maybe I gotta click on you. No, I guess I can't.
Maybe I could adjust the thing. Nah, I don't know how to do that.
Then I got some posters of some of my other favorite manga artists, Kentaro, who did Berserk. A lot of. I'm very big into manga. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah,
not all of it, but there's a few of them that I really love.
I don't know what it is. I've never really followed any anime or manga stuff. Like, just within like the last maybe 2-3 years, I've kind of like more followed it on an art level. But like, I never noticed like how much like people in the black community like are really into anime.
Man, you love that stuff.
It's so out of nowhere, man.
Yeah, man. Have you ever read Berserk?
That's like, because like television stuff sucks so bad, I'm thinking of getting back into something, and maybe I'll get into like reading comics. If you choose to read two different, let me give you 2 different manga, but these are the darkest, most like evil manga, but they're why I like them too, because they display evil the way I would display it. Read Berserk or read Gantz. Gantz is Gantz. They're both for adults. They have a lot of violence, all types of stuff in it. But if you read those, they will change your outlook on manga. I've always heard Berserk is just awesome, but I've never. It's the best. I never like delved into it or anything like that.
You're gonna thank me when you start reading it. You're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know it was this good."
Yeah.
That's how good it is.
You mentioned like other like forms of like Christian, entertainment. Like, is there any part of it that like kind of frustrates you as far as like, like it being not well made or? Oh
man, if you look up Christian cartoons, there's this guy I follow on YouTube. I forgot his name, but all he does is review bad cartoons. Half of them are Christian cartoons, man.
Really?
And it's just so embarrassing, because it's like, we worship, the Christianity is about Jesus Christ, who was the best storyteller that ever lived. All he did was tell parables and stories and things like that. And then you got these Christian stories that are complete garbage. It don't even have after effects. These guys are like, they're talking and their mouths is out of sync. They just, the voice acting is like, "Oh, Jesus, over there, Peter, come here." It's so dry. It's horrible. It's absolutely, as a Christian artist who wants to like elevate the Christian entertainment, watching that will depress you. Watching most Christian art. I will tell you, the best art that has come out of the Christian community is the Moses story. What is it called? The movie that is not
Noah's Ark.
No. the one about Moses where when they had it was a musical and they had the Deliver Us song, and that was the best one.
Like
I can't remember exactly what it's called.
Like the classic.
No, it's a cartoon.
Oh.
Yeah,
But it was really well done. But it was one of the best Christian cartoons I've ever seen.
Is there something like in the like storytelling method that like frustrates you within like Christian entertainment?
Yep.
Like,
they make everything cookie cutter, and this is why I feel like when my comic book does get out there, people will understand why it's necessary. Mm-hmm. Everything in life is not cookie cutter and clean. Mm-hmm. Okay, but Christianity and a lot of Christian artists, they approach art like that. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the story, everything get wraps up in this nice little bow.
Yeah.
The dude who worshiped the devil at one point is now praying and saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for showing me that Satan is not the way." And you're like, that's not how things are. Like, everything is not nice. Everything is not good. The Christian walk is not easy. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that drove me to write my comic book is I don't feel like in Christianity in general, not just in the entertainment, they don't display true Christianity and masculine Christianity. They are focused on the weak feminine parts of Christianity because that sounds good. They talk about the love, the kindness, the gentleness, but they don't talk about the zeal, the anger that God told you should have against evil. They don't talk about the judgment, the passion that you're supposed to have for righteousness. They don't talk about any of those things, you know, but they because that stuff is scary, right? That doesn't sound loving. Yeah. But that's just as much a part of God as the other side is. And so when you see these things, Christian storytellers, they often want to stick to what's comfortable, but they don't do what's necessary. So they'll tell these stories, and every character is either all good or all bad, or their philosophies have no flaws. I remember watching a Christian movie and like the Christian character just had all the answers to life. Oh my gosh. Any one of his friends just ask him anything and he just knows it. Yeah. He didn't have to study, he just knew. And anybody who had any like one-upped him, they were one-upping him by nefarious means. Like they were like not letting him talk, or they were just shutting him down. Stupid Christian, you don't know that atheism is true. That's not how people talk. People actually have a dialogue. Sometimes people, don't know everything that they need to know during a debate. And most of the times Christians, you have to understand you are fighting an uphill battle. You're going to lose more than you win in the Christian walk. And part of the reason why a lot of people don't understand Christianity, they think once you become a Christian, your life is easy. That's not what Jesus told you. Jesus said, if they hated me, they'll hate you. He called himself the stone of offense. So the Christian walk, I feel like when people read my comic book, they'll understand. They'll be like, man, I thought this was going to be a cool little story, but the character just keeps losing. People are dying. Bad things are happening. It's a real struggle, and that's what the Christian walk really is. So I think Christians don't really display that correctly, and I do plan to bring that to the entertainment industry.
How, you're going to, portraying violence and stuff like that in your... comic, like how far is too far in portraying that within like the guidelines of like keeping it Christian?
Keeping it Christian,
you know what I
mean?
See,
that's a good question. And you know what, remember I told you about that my brother and I have a YouTube channel called Zeal Brothers. We talked about that this week. We talked about what's the difference between sexuality and showing too much of that and showing too much violence. The difference, I think, with people today, and this might be a philosophy that most people don't agree with me with, but I really believe this, that Christians need to stop looking at violence and sexuality the same. Because violence is sometimes necessary, where over sexuality is never necessary. You can get your point across showing something or displaying something without actually showing full-blown pornographic material, right? You can get your point across that two people are in a romantic relationship without displaying that. But when it comes to violence, it's really hard to display that a character is dead and not coming back if you don't show how they died, which entails violence, right? Not only that, but the Bible doesn't explicitly go into over sexualization, but it does go into violence, because violence needs in some cases to be shown in order for you to understand the severity of the story.
Yeah.
If I have an evil character, right, and he's a massive killer, in a PG movie, that character that normally would kill somebody would just bonk them on the head and they'll get knocked out. That in the human mind will trick you to not take that story serious. So in order for you to take that story serious, you have to show some violence, like some grotesque violence. That character that's evil might have to stab somebody through the face in order for you to show that they don't have the respect for life that other characters do. And I really believe that. So when it comes to how far I'll go with violence, I'll go pretty far. I'll go pretty far because I'm trying to get a point across and tell a story that evil does exist. And how do you show people that evil needs to be defeated if you don't show them what evil is? Sexuality, on the other hand, you can present that without necessarily presenting it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And it'll still get the full point across. All of us have seen scenes where two characters walk towards a bedroom holding hands, and then the door closes, and then they wake up the next day putting their clothes on, and you understand what happened.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a scene of them thrusting and doing all and being sweaty and throwing up each other against the wall to get the sense.
Yeah.
That you still get the sense. But violence is a little bit different, in my opinion. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, would it be possible in like in a well-written Christian story to, you know, show some kind of a sex scene that's, like, I guess okay, that doesn't go beyond
this,
you know?
This is what I think. There's a line that's crossed that you don't know where that line is, but you only know when you cross it, right? So people know, like, the difference between art and just straight up overblown sexual, this is just about lust, right? And I think that's what the artist's job is to get as close to that line as you can so that you can tell the story the best way you can. Yeah. And what happens with sexuality is, if you're honest, in Hollywood, they're not displaying sexuality to tell a story. Yeah. They're displaying, oh, you want to come see this movie because back in the day when Halle Berry was still hot, she was taking her top off. Right? Yeah. That's what they're telling you. They're saying we want to sell more videos, or we want to sell more people coming to the movies by sexuality. The difference is when you're displaying something sexual, I think because of the nature of sexuality and how careful you as a Christian man you want to be about it, that's one of the lines where it's like, if the least you can display on that, the better, as long as it gets the story across. But does that mean you stay away from it completely? No, because then people won't get the realism of the story. So it's like a give and pull. It's not like a black or white there. Yeah. I think it's more of a gray.
Yeah, it's always something I've always been kind of curious about, because, like, whenever I stumble upon, like, I like watching, like, bad movies and stuff like that, and if I, like, stumble upon a bad Christian movie, it's usually very, like, kid friendly and like,
I want to take that away.
Yeah, okay.
I want to take that away, but, like, not have, like, full blown sex scenes, but maybe have scenes where you would understand why it's doing what it's doing. If I have characters that are if say we're doing a story and the moral of the story that hasn't been announced to the audience is about how characters should stay away from lust, right? How do you display that without displaying what effect lust has? Yeah. You have to kind of show enough to get the point across without fulfilling and just putting stuff there just so people can say, ooh, that's sexy, man, that's hot. Yeah, you're not putting it there for that reason. You're putting it there to tell a story.
Yeah. It's an interesting point.
So the motives do matter.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. There's something about, like, you know, finding out how far you can go with things, and I think even on, like, just everyday regular personal stuff, like, I think the average person doesn't take the time to see, like, how far they personally go with, you know, a certain topic. I mean, this you can apply this to, like, everything. I mean, even, like, abortion, like, you know, how far are you okay with the concept before like you even have like your okay, that's when you're kind of losing me kind of shit. So
yeah, like balance. Balance is important in everything. Yeah.
Totally agree.
But like, do you know who Michael Malus is?
No, I don't actually.
He's a what you call it? He's like an anarchist, but
Okay.
he's an interesting guy. I've seen him make the rounds and like a lot of like conservative shows lately, and I can't remember like what the interview was, but he brings up the point that like the average person uses, you know, mainstream news, mainstream media to like they have this agreement that like, you know, just tell me what I should worry about, what I should invest in, blah blah blah, and you know, but I think it goes a little bit more deeper than that. Like I think people have gotten accustomed in mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, like establishing just standards, you know, as far as like what's okay, what's not okay. And I think people have gotten so just used to that and not had any like personal use like set standards for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why like so many things are just so out of like just so far out there nowadays. Like if you think about, you know, like how far like homosexuality is like as a topic, like the mainstream is so extreme with it, and the average person just doesn't know why it's bad, you know, like why.
I think you'll be even a person becomes more intelligent when they realize that even the most innocent of stories has an agenda. Everybody has an agenda. The right has, the left has, everyone has, and it's just about which agenda is right.
Yeah,
everything does. Even if you look at, you know, Star Wars from the 70s, there are principles and morals that they were trying to get across there. There's a reason why the good guys are displayed as good and the bad guys are displayed as bad. The problem is, like you said before, and what I think part of what you were getting at is the average person, they do subconsciously or not look at media to give them way too much morality.
Yeah,
They
that's a
look
good
at
point.
they look at media and they say, "Oh, on CSI Miami, that's the bad guy, so we should stay away from people like that."
Yeah.
And so it's like, wait a second. You have to think for yourself and have a foundation of morality before you can even. It's very dangerous to look at. This is why we don't show kids R-rated movies, because we know when their mind is malleable, when they can be influenced. You don't want them influenced by the wrong thing. But the adults, a lot of times, and social media has done this tremendously, is they go to people that do not deserve to be leaders, and they look to them for all of their morality. This is why it's actually scary, because you'll see young men and young women, and they're so influenced by other people and what they think that they don't have any ideas of their own. They haven't thought anything really through. They just go with, if Kim Kardashian says that, this is why. And if you understand how deep it is, you will understand why there's millions upon millions of dollars given to celebrities just to drink a product. Not even to say, this is how crazy it is, not even to say anything.
Yeah.
They will give Kim Kardashian millions of dollars just to drink a Pepsi and drink it on screen, because they know people are so influenced by that they will start drinking it because they saw her drink it. If you think about how crazy that is, imagine when somebody gets on a microphone and says, "I believe guns should be taken away from everybody."
Yeah.
Imagine when they're so passionate about what they believe, when people worship them on that level. And it really comes down to people don't read enough. They don't serve God. They don't have any foundational principles of their own. And then they go to social media and allow themselves to be influenced so easily.
Yep.
Yeah.
Groupthink too.
Yeah.
It's I mean, celebrity worship is I mean, it's pure magic for Hollywood.
Yep.
Because all you got to do is just get everybody to bow down to their favorite celebrity, and next thing you know, their celebrity is saying give all your rights away,
Mhm.
because that's what I would do, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
else will do the same thing,
Mhm.
and it's really, really deplorable, and it's very unacceptable. And I think that, you know, it's these types of conversations that really are going to give us any kind of chance to be able to. I mean, this is our social way of fighting back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But you know, the way things are looking, you know, you look at all these other countries that are fighting for their rights right now.
Yeah.
Fighting for just to live, just to be able to go outside without having to, you know, tell the government where they're going because they don't have a vaccine passport, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
you know, we have to, you know, I look at America right now as the last country that has any kind of real power, because you look at all these other countries, they're all locked down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this country is the only one that they're really having trouble with.
Mhm.
And it's because we are being loud with our voices. It's because we're being loud with our principles.
Mm-hmm.
And they have done a pretty good job at getting most of, or I would say at least half of this country so divided and on one side of, you know, this socialist communist mindset where they, you know, where people just worship authority figures, you know, like scientists, which is the religion of scientism,
Yeah.
you know, celebrities. So really, it's just about people giving their authority over. And like you said, your name's Jack, right?
Jack. Yep. Correct.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we didn't get introduced, so sorry, man.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
all good.
it's like what
Jack,
Jack
or you can
said.
call my first name is Jeremy. Jack, Jeremy, either one.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's like what you said. People don't read enough. They don't actually do their own research, and I completely agree with you. I think it's the very reason why we're in such a extreme mess right now. And but you know, like, these conversations are, like I said, this is how we're socially fighting back at the very least.
Yeah,
So,
you know, you touched on something that's really important, and that is other countries are struggling, and the main reason for that is we have a constitution in this country that we say is not, our rights are not given by the government, they're given by God.
right.
And so therefore, if they're not given by the government, they shouldn't be able to be taken away by the government. And that's what our country was founded on. Now, we had our bumps and stuff like that, where certain people were considered people and stuff like that, but we actually got over that. And we've done a good job escaping those things, those dangerous ideas of slavery and even like not considering women, giving women rights. But we've got over that for the majority of it. And I'll say this, because of our Constitution is why they're having such a hard time controlling us. Because since we have the right, whether you look at any of the Constitution or the amendments or anything like that, you'll see we have a right to meet. We have a right to say what we want. We have a right to protect ourselves. The Second Amendment. We got a right to that somebody can't just seize our property. All these things are the things that the government is slowly trying to deteriorate with a lot of their things they're doing now, and they're trying to use the virus to do it. And I don't like how people are so stupid that they don't see it. It's like, okay, now you sit up here and you let people take away your rights, and when in the history have governments ever given back rights? After they taken it away. And I tell people that, and they like, oh, you really think these people are really trying to? Yes, I do.
Yeah, they are.
Yes, I do. And the fact that you don't means you haven't studied history
at all.
I love World War II, and I looked at how Hitler and his propaganda, how he was able to like convince the Germans of how to take away people's rights, and how the propaganda he presented, and it's like it's the same thing.
Yeah,
they
Mao Zedong, Lenin, Stalin, they all did the same thing.
All of them. And they did it under the guise of, we're trying to protect you. Do you remember Hitler's goal at the beginning was before the final solution was telling the Germans, that I'm going to protect you. I'm going to bring you back from the shame that you had in World War I. I'm going to make us a respectable people again. It wasn't just that I'm going to kill people and take away their rights, but he used that protection. I'm going to protect us. I'm never going to let what happened in World War I happen to us again.
Yeah.
And then guess what? He took away people's rights he didn't agree with, and the people that he didn't agree with, the Jews, were locked up, put in camps, separated for their own safety, right? Because when they didn't tell them they was going to kill them, they said, for your own safety, we're doing this. Yep. And the thing is, people don't understand, like, the government, any government, and throughout all of history, you have to be able to protect yourself from, because it's man's nature to where power is there, they would try to take it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. But also, like, I've noticed, like, a lot of, like, SJW types, or even people that I know that work in some kind of state level kind of thing, they're consumed with, like, good intentions, but also obsessed with power. And it's like, I don't know how to tell them how that's a bad combination. They just...
You know what, man? These people... You don't understand. Have you ever had somebody who got a little ounce of power and you like, no wonder you don't deserve to have it?
Yeah.
My partner was telling me a story just of last week where he went into a Walgreens and tried to buy something, and some girl, like 18-year-old, came right next to him, didn't wait till he left, and just said, I can't trust you because you don't have a mask on. It's like, why are you trying to control this man? You didn't have to come step right next to him and say that. You're trying to control him and usurp your power, the little bit of power you got of knowing that there might be a mask mandate or something like that. You're trying to use that to control somebody. Get out of here with that.
It's because there's this majority mentality. See, that's a lot of people don't understand that democracy means mob rule, and it means ruled by the most ignorant, because ignorance is about not having any understanding of why you're even part of this collective mindset, that you're pushing your collective will onto those. And because you have so many people who all agree on the same thing, whether it's immoral or moral, you believe that you can get away with being this social justice warrior, because you know that more people than not are going to take your side, or at least you believe that. And it's mind control, and people don't understand that either. It's all a form of mind control, and people are swayed, one way or the other so easily because they have no knowledge of how the mind works at all.
And some of these people are only strong when they're around their mobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't dare say some of the stuff they would say if they didn't have this social justice nonsense backing up, where they were hiding behind a computer. And it's insane, because as an officer myself, I can look in somebody's eyes and tell how far they're going to go. And some of these people, I remember being in the riots and having to suit up and all that. And some of these people are just so cowardly. But now that they're in a group of 100 to 200 people, now they want to throw rocks. Now they want to do dumb stuff. Now they want to chant and say silly things. Now they want to run and go into stores and loot. It's like, you wouldn't ever do that if you didn't have a group of 100 other idiots in front of you.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed when I was in college. Like the wimpier, skinnier guys that were like the most vocal, like, you could tell, like, they would have like this attitude, like, oh my god, like, if like someone was here, I'd totally give it to them. I would just look at them like, that's not gonna happen. Let's be honest.
You scared of my toxic masculinity. You ain't about to do nothing. And I'll be quick to tell people that, because you know what? Our world right now lacks masculinity in general. And that's why some of these men have gotten away with doing some of this weak stuff that they do. And they sit up here and they'll say like these dumb comments of, I'm going to stand up for women and hashtag believe all women. Shut up. You don't know, like, they find these little, like, dang, I don't want to say
all virtue signaling.
And
They find these weak men that represent them. It's like, y'all not real men. These dudes that stand for this stuff that are about silencing other people. Like,
Yep.
who was that politician who was like, "Yeah, we're gonna take your AR-15s. You ain't.
Right.
You ain't.
Exactly.
was it
You ain't coming to my house to do nothing."
was it
Yep.
Beto O'Rourke?
I forgot his
Oh
name.
God,
It's not
yeah,
even
I think
worth
it was-
remembering.
Yeah.
But he's talking about, yes, we're gonna
yeah.
come take your AR-15s. You ain't gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
You gonna get a better man to try to do it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's a
But
bummer
you can see his
because
strings, man. That dude is total freaking puppet mouthpiece.
yeah.
All of them are really.
Yeah, did you see that clip where like some Mexican cowboy guy was he was like at a club and he saw
I
Beto
seen that.
O'Rourke and yeah, he pretty much just like, oh hi, I'm Beto, like get the fuck out of our town kind of shit. It was great. Yeah, it was great. And the fact that it was like
security.
yeah, and it was like a Mexican cowboy guy made it even
Yeah,
a little better.
He's one of them cowboy boot wearing dudes.
Yeah.
He wasn't having it.
Yeah.
I guess like since you mentioned that you're in law enforcement.
Yep.
I would say like if you could like give your honest opinion and say what would you say is a bigger problem as far as like a scale of violence, like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, or right-wing supremacist? Like what is...
Man, from what I've seen, from the injuries that I've seen, from one of my people from my classmates being shot in the leg, from one of my sergeants being hit with a rock and having permanent brain damage, from Molotov cocktails being thrown at me, from having to, just physically get involved at these riots, I'm telling you, when Black Lives Matter and Antifa get together, that is a bad situation because they're two groups of people that they have very dangerous ideology.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care, like, we're not supposed to speak on like political stuff like that because a lot of that stuff is like, oh, well, we have to try to reason with people. No, you have to recognize dangerous terroristic ideology. And when people sit up here and they have their spokespeople say that white people need to give up their property in order for us to be happy, what is that saying? That's justifying looting.
Yeah.
That's justifying taking people's property, theft. That's justifying armed robberies. And you cannot have that ideology and people say that and then just say, well, that doesn't represent all the ideology. Well, the spokespeople didn't seem to demonize it when it came out. And when I saw a lot of the things that were going on, I had to just step back and say, this is nonsense. This is dangerous.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I've never had to fight a right-wing supremacist. A white supremacist that was right-wing. I never had to put my hands on. I've never been shot at by one, but I have been shot at during the Black Lives Matter riots.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah, like it's sometimes like I have no idea like where the confusion is with people. Like whenever I bring up that like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, like they are a problem enough for people just know that they're just they're not ideas that you should adopt. They're just bad ideas, and they lead to you being some fucking violent idiot. But their always response is like, well, what about the insurrection? It's like, I mean, comparing both like in the size of like property damage and the the current like the amount of times it actually happens, like it's not even a fair comparison at this point. Like,
no. And the damage is not even reported. What happened in my city during the BLM riots, it was millions upon millions of dollars in damage. Stores that will have still not be reopened from, just people out of... I remember standing on top of the district and looking at the city, and the city was on fire. And looking at my own city and saying... I was in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So looking at that and just saying, oh my goodness, the whole city's on fire. and seeing what these people had did to my city that I grew up in, and it was very sad.
All for what? What were they upset about?
I don't think they even know. You know.
In my city, it was the first one in 2016 was because a guy who was running from the cops, he turned and canted his gun towards the police officer, and the police officer shot him.
I'm trying to think.
And they were, yeah. So,
Dang.
yep, that happened, and then later on after that, the same Black Lives Matter riots that went on pretty much everywhere, they happened also in the city of Milwaukee, and people were rioting, looting, and they didn't even report half the stuff that was going on. The media totally, in fact, it was scary because I would go to church the next day and talk to my dad, who's a pastor, and I would talk to him and be like, hey, did you know that they got into this store that was 2 blocks away?
Yeah.
Do you know that they just destroyed? So we got to be prepared, and he was like, no, I didn't know that. And it's in his own neighborhood and they didn't report it. And it's crazy what they just didn't report. And it's scary that they were just trying not to really show, just like that video where they show where it's predominantly peaceful and it's like burning in the background.
Yeah.
That's how all media was.
Yeah.
They did not show the true what was really going on. There was so much looting going on, we couldn't get to it quick enough.
How many days and nights did the last riot take place? Do you remember?
You mean how long ago did it?
I mean, was it a couple of days of rioting? It was a week?
Yeah, it was about, I would say the brunt of it, when it was really people were looting and burning stuff up, that lasted about a week or two. And then after that, it didn't necessarily die down. What they started doing after the looting was they would block off streets and they would do these marches, right? Where what they would do was they would come downtown and they would pick a main street and they would just block it off for however long they wanted to. And when they blocked it off, people couldn't get down. People's cars was trapped in. And then they would just hold a conference in the middle of the block. And they would use their cars to block it off. And they would, if anybody had a problem with them, bad things was happening to them.
Yeah.
And they would do this all over the city. And they did this the whole entire summer for a full 3 months.
Oh,
and
fuck.
I don't want to speak on too much, but I'll just say this: the way that I don't feel that the response was adequate.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I got a question, Jack.
Yeah.
So just involving or regarding your involvement with law enforcement. What's your feeling on taking orders and doing if you were told to do something immoral, what would your response be to that?
Well, it depends too. It depends. There's a lot of things that we have to do in law enforcement that I don't necessarily like. Right? Some things, sometimes you have to arrest somebody because, in a domestic violence case, you might go to that house and understand that these two people both fight each other all the time. And sometimes it's the woman's fault, sometimes it's the dude's fault. Mm-hmm. But even if the other person is lying, it's certain things that if they say in Milwaukee where they meet the criteria, you have to arrest the other person. Mm-hmm. So you be like, man, I know this person may be lying. I know this person may not be being most truthful and honest, but because of the law, I have to arrest somebody. And so you may not agree with it, but I still do that because I understand why. Then there's some things that if they ask me to do, I would never do because my principles and the reason why I believe I'm a good officer is because I follow God. And I think that if you tell somebody to give up their complete principles, for instance, if they start telling us that people who have COVID have to be put in concentration camps and we're going to use officers to get those people, I would never do that.
Would you?
I don't think they would.
Would you
do
quit?
That.
Would you quit your? Would you?
They're doing it in Australia.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely,
police are definitely doing it in Australia, like
they are.
hardcore.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
But I think they know
and
better
you know
than to
what
try to
they
pull
say?
that
They
in
say
America. Yeah.
the police there are just saying, "I'm just doing my job," and it's like,
Yeah. See, nah, I
nah,
can't do that because
that, yeah. So
as
Mhm.
I just
police
want to
here, we're
know. Yeah, I
constitutional
appreciate you.
officers. My
Huh?
fault. What were you saying?
Oh yeah, I appreciate you giving me a response on that because it's
No,
just
and I'll tell you this: it's a lot of good men and women that are in blue that will quit. We've already talked about it. We said we're not going to do this nonsense. If they start telling us to take away people's constitutional rights, the same rights that we sworn in on,
Mhm.
we are not going to abide by that. And so it's a lot of good. But that's why I believe police are under attack, is because the predominant cops, we have to be law abiding. We have to be more masculine. We have to be, people who believe in the Constitution, which makes us, a majority of us, more right leaning. And they
Mhm.
know that.
Yeah.
So if the average cop that you see is going to be somebody who is like a constitutionalist, going to be somebody who believes in your right to free speech, going to be somebody who believes in your Second Amendment, that's the average cop. That's what we believe. That's why we became cops.
Mhm.
yeah.
So you're not going to see too many. If you start seeing stuff in America of they telling you to disobey the Constitution and seize people's property and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot of cops either just not do it, or you're going to see a lot of them just quit or early retire
Mhm.
or do stuff like they call the blue flu, where everybody just gets sick and then they
Mhm.
start having to change their policies. You're going to see a lot of that. But the world is getting weaker too, so
Mhm.
you never know.
Has like your department have people been like here in LA, like cops have been quitting like fucking
Yeah.
like no tomorrow because I mean.
What they did now with us is they've essentially defunded us, but in a different way.
Mhm.
Instead of outright saying we're going to fire 10%, they just put a hiring freeze on. And what's happening is so many people are at the retirement age that we're losing so many officers that they're not being replaced.
Mhm.
And it's a bad situation because we're very understaffed.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, with things like car thefts being up 500%, stuff like that,
Oh.
it's just one of the situations where, man, it's gonna catch up to people because 2, 3 more years of this, they're gonna be begging that they hire more cops.
Yeah, what wasn't fuck. I remember reading that like there was some one of like the super vocal defund the police. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
Minneapolis. I think it was
Possibly.
Ilhan Omar or whatever her name is.
Oh yeah, it's Minneapolis. Yeah,
I think she was I think she's now advocating to put more money into
yeah,
the into the
and
fucking
that's
thing.
what happens because innocent people get hurt when there's no cops on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a bad situation. It's no real way around it. I wish that more people honestly knew their Second Amendment rights and abided by that so they could protect themselves.
Yeah.
But the reality is there's a lot of people who either don't have the money or they don't believe bad things will happen to them and they're getting victimized. And when they get victimized, you need a cop to respond.
Yeah.
And when you don't have people to respond, what happens to society? You have criminals running the streets and taking over.
Yeah. You have
And
LA.
it's a sad situation
So
because nobody wants to see that
yeah.
other than the criminals like it.
It's something though, because like over here, like so many people were like saying, "Oh, defund the police is a good idea," but like just explaining to them like on a logistics level that less police means that crime will go up, and
Yeah.
it's
And
wild.
not only that, but these people claim that they're anti-racist, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take away police, the most affected group of people will be black people.
Yeah.
Simply because in the inner cities where poverty is where the most crime will happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not that we are trying to, put more police in there to control these people. It's not that. What's happening is there's poverty, there's crime and poverty-stricken areas,
Mm-hmm.
and the people will victimize the people they're around first. So it's when you see this black crime, and then you take all police officers out, or even half police officers out, or you don't allow those police officers to be proactive, what you're going to see is crime in the inner cities get worse before it branches out to the suburbs and the other places, because these people ain't going to drive 20 minutes to go rob somebody. They're just going to rob the dude down the street.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm in, my apartment, like I'm hearing, police sirens pretty regularly now, you know what I mean? Like every maybe 2 hours I'm hearing something in the background. So and people just for some reason still can't piece it together that, like, it might have been because of the defund the police, but
you can't convince nobody nothing until sometimes you got to let them live with the choices they made, Yeah, I'll tell you what's very sad is just like going to a call and seeing, when I worked in a different district, it was a busier district, and just seeing 22 calls pending, and you can't get to help these people because you already stuck on a call, and 5 of those calls is somebody like actively being beaten up.
Yeah.
And you got to sit there and look at that and tell your partner, like, we can't go because we got to book this person in, or we got to do this paperwork, or we have to, like, make sure this person gets from A to B. And you like, man, dude, nobody wants to sit and see another victim. But that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's weird, man.
What was I gonna say? When you start telling people right away, when you're talking to, let's just say, a communist, an atheist, a socialist, do you typically, like, if you let them know that you're a Christian, do you typically see that they automatically dismiss everything that you say, or try to avoid you or not want to talk to you any further?
You mean like on the job or just in real life?
Just in regular.
I was gonna say, because I try not to like do any political stuff on the job.
Yeah, sure.
But I'll tell you this: what I've noticed from different groups of people is there's 2 different groups of people. Like, there's the people that are open, and then there's the people that like totally cut you off. From when I talk to most, it's like half and half. Because some atheists that I talk to, whether I talk to them about like Christianity or philosophy or anything, some of them are real cool people, and they'll sit down and talk to you. And some of my real close friends are agnostic and atheists and things like that. But then there's a certain group of them, like I would say, like half and half, where the other half is like, this guy believing this guy in the sky, he's crazy, he can't be trusted. And then they say these untrue phrases like he doesn't believe in science, and they start putting all these things on you that they got from an atheist website. And you're like, dude, that's not even what I believe. You're getting it secondhand what I believe. Why don't you sit down and talk to me,
Yeah.
And the same way with like the super like SJW types. It's like, why don't you sit and listen to what I have to say? Because I'll listen to you, you listen to me, we have a discussion.
Yeah.
Don't just yell over people that just,
Yep.
But that's like half and half. The SJW type, they don't. That's about 90%. They don't listen. They do not listen.
Yeah. That's been the case with me too.
I mean, I guess for Nate, like, do you find yourself like much more consistently having to be able to talk to have these conversations with more right or left leaning people?
Well, this is interesting because on my new show that I just came out with, Doug and I get into conservatism and socialism, or the left wing mindset, or the communist mindset or the atheistic mindset, because that's really what the left wing, if you want to call it that, that's really what it usually typically boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is people who believe in God are typically more open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that, we're going to agree on everything the same, but at least they're open to deeper ideas, to where atheists tend to be very closed-minded, even though they're supposed to be, very scientific minded and skeptical. They usually throw out anything that goes beyond the five senses. And even though I can talk to Christians, I can talk to Muslims, I can talk to atheists, it doesn't matter. But I recognize that because I know that there's a creator, I can relate more with Christians. And when I talk with an atheist, it's like, oh man, as soon as I talk about anything that goes beyond their senses, their five senses, they're like, nah, I'm out of here. I don't want to talk. Or they'll get really big chested with
arrogant,
with their skepticism. And I'm just like, it's this ego that really starts to come out.
It's like they want to get you in that gotcha moment instead of having a real conversation.
Right. And
that's where you
feel dumb rather than listen.
Yeah. And you know what? I've studied apologetics, which is like how to debate the scriptures, how to debate or present the Bible and make a educated argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to be, back in the day, I used to love just finding people and arguing.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when you get older, you don't have time to do all that. And then second of all, like, you can tell off bat when somebody's really listening or they're just listening to respond,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of atheists, they do have that mentality where it's like, you can tell. I've had arguments with atheists on Facebook, and I know you've probably seen the same thing, where you be like, oh, you're a Christian? Yeah. Well, here's a 1,000 questions that I copied off of an atheist website that you should answer. And you'd be like, first of all, you're not going to listen anyway.
Yeah.
Second of all, you don't even believe this. You just copied and pasted it.
Yeah.
You don't even know, and then some of the questions will be totally incorrect. The Bible says that slavery is right. That's been disproven several times. And you're like, y'all don't even take the chance. This is just a matter of you have located the enemy in your sights, and you just have to destroy him. Yeah. It's like, come on, just have a conversation with two people that are being educated.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I guess I would probably say I'm more agnostic than anything else. Because I would have considered myself atheist, but I don't know if you guys knew about the new atheist movement that happened a couple years ago, where it was like this thing where they were like to be a true atheist, you have to adopt feminism. It was really douchey and fucking.
What?
Yeah, it was fucking weird. But even before then, I was being kind of turned off from atheism in general, because I was noticing an arrogance in
to be atheist, you gotta come to my house and sleep with me.
An attitude of being so certain that they are right, and just in life in general, I don't like being so certain of things. I like being kind of surprised and finding out things.
Yeah, it's hard to grow when you're when everything is an absolute certainty. Now, I do believe in absolutes such as morality.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Natural law. The law of one, the universal law, whatever you want to call it. I believe that is the absolute, because that's what binds our behavior, our being together.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. It's not even something that I necessarily believe. It's more of something that I understand at a very deep level.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else, I don't think there's absolute. Because it's there is. I know that there's a random component, and I know that there's a deterministic component, because when you understand that everything is bound by this one thing, whatever this is, this whole grand all in all, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the law that determines everything, just like gravity, thermodynamics. Natural law is a determined law. It's a fixed law in nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the universe. And then you have the random component, which is the free will component to do, to make, decisions, right or wrong.
Yeah.
And, I look at right and wrong as absolute, because one causes harm and one doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So if we find out that there's, and I know 7 wrongdoings that cause harm, and then the rest are, any actions that a human being takes other than those 7 wrongdoings are rights. And, just so you understand where I'm coming from, like a wrongdoing, for instance, the 7 that I'm talking about would be murder, rape, coercion, assault, trespassing, stealing, and willfully lying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think you guys would agree, I think anybody would agree, those are all harmful things. They steal from people, right? Like murdering is, stealing someone's life. Raping somebody is taking someone's sexual consent.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all these forms of theft. And so any action that we take that isn't one of those harmful things is a right, because it is harmonizing in nature. It's not causing disharmony. It's not something that is hurting anybody else. So this is a very hidden philosophy that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's been hidden from us because we're way easier to control when we don't understand this science.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just really this is something I'm very passionate about, that I talk a lot about in my shows. But it is something that if we were all to at least like have the understanding, the deeper understanding of the golden rule, because that's really all it is.
Yeah.
Then and understanding that it comes from the Creator. This law is from the Creator, and as we understand this science, because that's people argue that it's not science, but it is, because and here's the other thing. Like, you think about people, they I know a lot of atheists who believe in karma.
Yeah.
Well, that's what natural law is.
Yeah.
That is the golden rule. But they don't want to accept that, because they want to believe that karma is a random thing, because it doesn't happen automatically, right? So it's a very, and that's what happens when we stay ignorant to this type of science, because we stay, in that mindset of just thinking, well, karma is just it's a random accident in our human experience. And it's really not, though. It's just, it takes us really to be hungry, or, it takes us wanting to be hungry and actually having the drive to want to know this type of knowledge, so that way we can take it into ourselves and then enact it and, put it out into the universe to, because
I have a belief that everyone understands, or everyone, whether they admit it or not, has a full sense of absolute morality. And the reason why you know that is because people know when they see something that is absolutely wrong.
Right.
If every one of us looked outside and we saw a child being sexually abused, we would know. I don't care what your society is or culture is or anything like that. If you saw a child being sex, we know. And the reason why I have to take it to that extreme is because people act like there is no black and whites. Well, if there is no black and whites, so what would you call that?
Right.
You know, like if you see something like that, you understand that there's an absolutes. Now the question is, if there's moral law, then there has to be a moral law giver. And if that moral law giver is a person that has a personhood and he has a will for your life, what is that? And people have spent their whole lives trying to find out what that will is or what that person is. And what I'll say is this is something that cannot be denied. And that is when I had my encounter with Jesus Christ, you can deny whether the Bible is true, but you cannot deny my experience, right? And people often use that the wrong way. They often say, well, I had an experience and you have experience, so they both cancel each other out. Not necessarily, because the only experiences that are true are the ones that change your life. You cannot say, I saw an alien, and that alien said he's going to destroy the planet tomorrow, and then you live like you have the rest of your life to live. You really don't believe that. You're just talking nonsense. But if you have an encounter with Jesus Christ, right, like I did, and he changes your life, then hold on, my phone is doing something weird. If you have an encounter with Jesus Christ and he changes your life and your life is different than everybody else around you, or people see that your life is different, then other people will understand that, dang, there is an absolute truth that this man is living by. The problem with most Christians nowadays is they don't live any different.
That's right.
And people see that and they look and they say, man, you didn't have no encounter with Jesus Christ. You talk the same, you act the same, you do everything everybody else do.
Right.
You know, and the main detractor from Christianity is other Christians, because people will see other Christians and they'll say, oh, the most hypocrites is the church. And that's a true statement, because too many people fake it. So therefore other people don't believe it. And I don't even blame some of my friends for not believing, because they around too many fake Christians. If they was around real Christians who actually lived and believed the Bible, they probably would be more apt to believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you guys ever have any doubts on your beliefs, or is that like a am I asking that question badly? You know?
I do. I do. I did. I mean, I do, but I did when I started getting into understanding this, the understanding the creator. Okay. When I started to understand the creator, it wasn't because I believed in a creator. I did believe that okay, let me just back up a little bit. When I was a lot younger, I was raised by a Catholic family, and then I became atheist for a year in my teens, and then I became agnostic, and then I started to explore all religion. All the religions. And when I did that, that's when I started to come to a well-rounded conclusion that there really is a higher power. There really is, if you want to call it God. And I started to resonate with it. I started to understand what that meant. Now, obviously,
would you say
I got older,
would you say
would
you say that you saw the similarities between all these beliefs, and that sort of gave you a kind of broader picture?
Well, I basically I think I was, when I was younger, when I was in my teens, I kind of dismissed the idea of any stories out of the Bible, because I just didn't understand, and I was very skeptical, which that's a very healthy thing to do when you're in your teens, I would say. But what I didn't do is the one thing that I didn't dismiss was, I kept thinking to myself, well, there's this story that's been around for a couple thousand years. There's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it would stick around this long if there wasn't. So what I did is I started looking further into it, and I started looking at as many sides as possible. I didn't just go directly to the Bible. I went to the Quran. I went to Scientology. I went to, all the mystery traditions like Freemasonry and Kabbalah and Tarot. I went into Satanism. I went into, I went into Catholicism and, all the different sects of Christianity I went into because I really wanted to understand from a very eclectic world, view, right? And I found myself believing certain things, and then I realized, like, okay, well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find out where am I wrong. One of the things that I've grown within myself in the past 10 years is this will to know where I'm wrong, where the dogma is, because that's where growth happens.
Yeah.
So I'm always open to, what we were talking about earlier with, debating people. I don't like getting into debates because debates don't lead to anywhere except for someone just being right.
Yeah.
But conversation, the word conversation comes from con and versare, which means con means together and versare means to change. So it means to change together. You're with each other to change and grow together.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I like having conversations like what we're having, because I get to hear, right here, I get to hear two different sides with my side, and we're evolving together. That's what I'm about. So anyway, as I got further into this work, I really, really found myself looking at every avenue in things and really finding the bullshit in myself more and more to get past that. Because the more, I look at Jesus as an archetype more than I do as an actual person, because I look at myself as I want to be like that. I'm never going to be Jesus, but I want to be like Jesus. And so I look at him as a symbol that I try to align myself with, and if you're familiar with Christ consciousness, I'm trying to align my consciousness with that, which means I'm trying to get through all my stupid bullshit, my lies to myself, and live that way as a sovereign human being. And the more I do that, the closer I get to being more honest with myself, and the more I get rid of the lies that I have lived. So if that answers your question.
How much would you guys say is is understanding related to your beliefs? I don't know if I'm asking the question correctly, if that makes sense, but how much do you have to understand, I don't know, the Bible in order for you to get to a point to start to believe that what it's, the messages are just generally good, or, you know what I mean? Or should we just...
How much do you have to understand it in order to be a Christian, you mean?
Or just to believe it to be worth believing, I guess. How much do you have to understand it? I mean, I guess maybe we can move on if it's.
I got an answer. I would say, if you're if you're truly reading, to me, if you're truly reading the Bible, it's not necessarily that you're reading it, you're studying it to help you understand yourself and the world that you live in, and understand your brothers and sisters that you live with, right? And I would say that studying the Bible is a lifetime study, because it's about you finding yourself through there. I wouldn't say, me personally, I don't look at it as being an institutionalized follower, right? I want to be careful when I say that. But I would say when it comes to how I would understand following as a sovereign human being, it's about recognizing that the Bible isn't to take completely literal, because when we literalize it, that's when there becomes this confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I find my
Uh-oh. Oh, crap.
sounding condescending or whatever. I look at that as like that's what you're trying to do, is find your adulthood through there, because what you recognize is that as we live in a world that is kind of run by Christianity, we have to recognize why that is, and because it is our responsibility to recognize the world that we live in and the belief systems that we have, so that way we can either align with it, or we can understand it, at least to be able to get along and understand why there's principles here, why there's a moral mechanism within us, like Jack was
Let me
saying.
say this: in order to, I would say my philosophy and what I learned from the people that teach the Bible is that there are a few things that you have to learn, or you have to understand in order to be a Christian. One is that Jesus died on the cross.
Right.
The other one is that he rose again, and that he died for you, and that he can take away your sins.
Right.
There's other things that you have to believe, but I do believe, and this is where we might have some disagreements, I believe the Bible is infallible. I believe that in John it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God." And so if you believe Jesus Christ, you must therefore believe his word. So when you believe God's word, you have to understand that it is absolutely true. I don't really believe that you can be a Christian if you don't believe all of God's word. Now, here's another thing. I do believe that when you're studying the word of God, well, I was trying to think. I forgot where I was going with that idea. But basically, I believe that the Bible is an absolute truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that Jesus Christ declared himself God. I believe that if you're going to believe in the Bible, you have to believe what Jesus Christ said about himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." That was his words. So we talked about truth and absolutes and how the world works on absolutes. The truth is a person, and that person is Jesus Christ. And therefore, if God declares himself the truth, he is the absolute. There is no salvation outside of Jesus Christ. And I really do believe that. And when I had my encounter with Jesus Christ, I can honestly say the biggest difference between God of the Bible, Jesus Christ, and every other religion is every other religion tries to reach to God, and Christianity says God reached down to us. And what I mean by that, if you look in Buddhism, you have to reach nirvana. You got to reach a certain state of peace. You have to become one with the universe. If you look in even Catholicism, or you look in the Quran, you have to pray 5 times a day. You got to live as Muhammad lived. You got to follow the Hadith and study what Muhammad lived and how they dressed and what they ate, and follow all their rules. If you look at Jehovah's Witnesses or the Black Hebrew Israelite, and you can name any religion, any other one, it's all about what you have to do to reach God. But Christianity says there's nothing you can do. In Romans, it says no one is righteous, not even one person. No one knows God. So therefore, in order for you to come in contact with God, he has to reach down to you and save you. In Romans and Ephesians, which I've been studying lately, it says you were dead in your trespasses, and you couldn't do anything to be saved. You have to understand, as a Christian, that's one of the main things you have to understand, is that Jesus Christ saved you, and it's not because of your own doings, like Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For by grace are you saved, not of yourself. It was a gift of God. No man can boast in it, because no man did anything to save himself." So the absolutes that Jesus Christ gives us, as a Christian, a lot of people will say, I respect the Bible, or that they're Christians, but they don't really understand the tenets of Christianity when it comes to what you must believe. if you have an encounter with Jesus Christ, you cannot, like people will say, I used to be a Christian. There's no such thing. If you understand Christianity, you can't used to know God, because being a Christian is to say, I know I had an encounter with Jesus Christ, which changed my life. I can't go from knowing my wife to unknowing her. I can go from, man, I thought I knew her, but I didn't really know her as well as I thought I did. I can say that, but I can't really unknow her. And so a lot of things about Christianity are misunderstood nowadays. And we might have some disagreements about that, but
I agree with what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know if we have enough time to go into it, but like when you said you had your moment with, Jesus, like, would you ever be curious to like explain that moment, or would that be a longer kind of thing?
Okay, so, and this is something I love to talk about, because every Christian it resonates with them, this moment.
Mm-hmm.
When I was around 7 or 8 years old, I don't remember exactly when, my dad, who was an assistant pastor at the time, came and he told me what Jesus Christ did for me, that he died on the cross for my sins, and he told me about hell, and he told me about heaven. And when he told me about that, he showed me in the Word of God what Jesus said about himself. And it was my mom and dad who led me, and they said, do you want to pray with me? And I said, yes. And I remember having this overwhelming fear about going to hell. As a little kid, that's scary. I had an overwhelming feeling about not doing the right thing. And the thing that really changed me, and to this day, is not this magic prayer that I prayed. It's the encounter with Jesus Christ and what he did after that. After I chose to believe in Jesus Christ, after I gave my life to him and told and said the words, Jesus Christ, I believe in you, I give my life to you. After I declared that, God came into my life where it was undeniable, where I could not do the things that my friends did. Even now, if I try to go and do some things, I will not be able to do it, because the Holy Spirit that's inside of me won't let me go as far. And it pricks my heart to the point where other Christians will understand this, but unsaved people who do not know Jesus Christ, they won't understand what I'm about to say. It's not just the guilt about doing bad things. It's the Holy Spirit's voice inside your head, like you're a crazy person, saying you will not do that, and what you did was wrong, and you must repent. And you will feel this overwhelming pressure. My dad talks about it like this. He's a pastor, he said a Christian is like a fish. When a Christian is in sin and doing something against God's will, he's like a fish out of water. He can stay out there for a little bit, but he will not survive. He has to go back in that water. And that's how I feel when I'm outside of God's will. And a true Christian, y'all know the feeling that I'm talking about, where you feel this overwhelming pressure from the Holy Spirit to say, you are not living in God's will. And that feels so bad at the time, but that is one of the main reasons why I know God is real, because I've never had to, even at 7, before that moment, my encounter with Jesus Christ, I never had that feeling before. And even my friends would tell me, like, man, I can do these things, and you just can't do them. What's wrong with you? And I'd be like, dude, the Holy Spirit is not going to let me live like that. I can't. And it's guided my life to the point where my life is drastically different than most of my friends, because the Holy Spirit has set me apart. That don't mean I'm better than anybody, or I don't sin at all, because I do. But when I do sin and I stay in that sin, the Holy Spirit do not let me stay there for long, because his voice is with me, where it's not with other people. If that explains anything at all.
I got you. That was good.
Hey, Jack, I got kind of a personal, hard question for you.
Yeah.
Man, I really like talking to you, man. You're a really, really smart guy. You're really cool.
I appreciate it.
I when we're talking about literal Jesus, when physical flesh Jesus, what's your feeling on the police of his day nailing him to the cross?
You mean, do I feel that it was right or wrong, or?
Well, yeah, like what do you feel about the people who took the orders to put him up on the cross? Like, how do you deeply feel about that?
I think that, okay, so there's two different parts of this.
Yeah.
There is Jesus Christ, in one of the tenets of Christianity, that Jesus Christ died for our sins.
Right.
Okay, so therefore, I'm happy that Jesus Christ was put to death for my sins, but I also understand the sins of man that put him there.
Sure.
The sins of man that said, we don't like what he's teaching. The Romans said at the time, and the Jews did at the time, and
Right.
they thought he was teaching blasphemy. I understand that it was their evil intentions and Satan's evil intentions to try to stop the word of God by putting Jesus Christ to death. So I think that part was wrong, absolutely wrong. And I also believe that if Jesus was here today, we would do the same thing for different reasons or
I think
whatever.
it's even worse today.
Yes. I think we will put him to death all over again. And I think that right now what we say and what we see is that even though he was put to death, he gave up. The Bible says he gave his life freely. Basically saying that just because people took him to the cross and nailed him to the cross, he was still God. And at any point, the Bible says he could have called 1,000 angels to take him down off that cross and save his own life. And he could have mass killed everybody. He could have did. If you read Revelations, you can see what Jesus Christ could do if he really wanted to, and he chose not to, and he chose to do that for us. So for that, I'm extremely grateful. But do I understand that there were evil people that God used? This is one of the mysteries of the gospel, is that God used evil people's intentions, like Judas.
Yeah.
He used his evil intentions, still recognizing them to be evil, and used it for good. They didn't know the full will of God. They thought they were doing their own thing when they crucified Jesus Christ, but he took that and did the most greatest thing in history. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know. I don't know if that answered everything.
No,
That was good.
I just wanted to hear your take on that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we should probably start wrapping up. We didn't really get a chance to get into the other stuff I wanted to talk about. But it happens, you know what I mean?
No, it's all good, man. I'll be back. I'll come back as many times as y'all want me to.
Yeah, no problem, man. You're always welcome to come out.
I really appreciate it.
I don't know. I guess if you wanted to, like, just real quick, just plug, your website, what you're working on, stuff like that.
The thing I haven't plugged as much as I should have is me and my brother's channel, Zeal Brothers, ZEAL Brothers. And that's me and my brother. We talk about some of the same topics we do on here. Matter of fact, I don't think there's a topic touched on here that we haven't talked about on that channel. And
nice.
We kind of do it from the perspective of being a strong Christian man in today's world, and getting rid of the feminine gospel. The lie that the gospel is feminine, and that you got to be a feminine man to be a Christian. We kind of dispel that on that channel. My brother is more knowledgeable than me. He's going to school to be a pastor. If you think I'm knowledgeable, he know a little bit of something. He would come on the show too. He would love it.
Yeah, I'd like to have him on. Like I like talking about spirituality and stuff like that. Like I'm not like a religious guy myself, but I can tell I do like to have these conversations.
He would love to come on. Matter of fact, is it okay if I give him your information?
Oh yeah,
no. Cool.
I mean,
so.
Yeah, if you want to do like a crossover episode of the Zeal Brothers and
that'd be cool. Crazy, man. I would love to do that. Yeah, last thing I want to plug is the Wags the Warrior of Truth comic, and that's a comic written and illustrated by me, Police Officer Kenner, also known as Jack Online. You can search the Indiegogo campaign at Wags the Warrior of Truth comic on Indiegogo. You can search my Facebook page where I have all the updates, all the art. Everything is drawn and illustrated and written by me. You don't gotta wonder where it came from or if I paid anybody to do it. It's all done by me. So if you want to support me, you can do that. We also have people who don't like Indiegogo. They can go to the Facebook page and see our store link from there where you can buy merch. You can buy hats, T-shirts, all that stuff. So that's Wags the Warrior of Truth.
Nice.
And that's the Wags the Warrior of Truth comic. So thank you guys for even letting me on here to do that.
No problem. This is fun. Nate, you want to plug anything, Nate?
Yeah, again, this has been a very fruitful conversation, and I really, really appreciate it. I'm always, I love Critical Introverts, man. It's just like every time I come on here, I feel like I'm in I feel like I'm with people who are principled and really open to, new ideas or,
Thanks, man.
just you're always so inviting, man, and I always appreciate that. But
Thanks, man.
yeah, if anybody who is listening wants to further their understanding of the inner world, the spiritual world, psychology, consciousness, mind control, the occult, or anything to do with the world and how things are operating, you can come here to cubbyhole.com. That's CUBBYWHOLE.com. And I'm up to 52 podcasts
Nice.
now. And it is a stepwise progression. So if you start at podcast number 1 and work your way through, you will definitely be very, there's just a lot there to learn. So it is a work that I've put my whole heart into, and it's all about trying to find the enlightenment within on your journey. So
cool. All right. Thank you guys for watching. This is another episode of the Critical Introverts Show. I'm your host, Senor Filth, and see you another time. All right. See you guys. Bye.
See you guys.
All right.